How do you determine if it's a possession or if it's a mental health issue?
The code of canon law says I have to have moral certitude. So if they have supernatural strength, we know that's one. So if I see somebody, if I see somebody throw a 300-pound man with one hand, I'm like, that's not her. If they have a deep-seated aversion to things that are holy, that's another telltale sign. There's 3 of them. That's 2. The third one is if they have knowledge of things they could never know. The most obvious cases that probably we've all seen, and if you've been doing this long enough, is, you can get a 20-year-old person who has a fairly low degree of education, like they barely can read and write, and then suddenly during their deliverance prayers, they start screaming at me in Latin, and I'm just like, hold on, pretty sure this little kid here doesn't know Latin or Greek or any other ancient language. So those would be big signs. For me personally, in my break room, the big water jugs, the water that I drink is holy water. So I make that holy water. It has the exorcism salt in it. So on the first time I meet an alleged victim, I bring them into the break room and I say, hey, it's hot outside. I'm going to grab some water. You want some water? They almost always say yes, because people are basically polite, even if they're afflicted, and they go to drink the water. If they immediately have a reaction to that water, I know this is real, because the person had no idea that was holy water. Probably wouldn't even know what holy water is half the time, because they're usually not Catholic. I had a girl take one sip and she out and fell down on the floor completely. I said, okay, bingo, we got one.
Wow.
So you can do things like this. I will keep a pyx in my pocket. It's a little gold case made out of gold, and we put the Blessed Sacrament in there when we go to see the sick. And then when I'm ministering to that person, I open the pyx and I give them Holy Communion, they receive it, and we that's what we carry around to bring communion to people. So if I'm interviewing somebody that says they're possessed, and about halfway through the interview, I pull out the pyx and I open it, and they see the host. And then if they start raging and going, I say, okay, you can relax, because that's an unconsecrated host. That's a piece of bread. So I think it's more of a issue you're having, not demonic.
In Hollywood, a lot of times we see the demon proclaim who they are. Sometimes it seems like there's multiple demons.
Almost always.
Almost always.
I've never had a case that was one demon. They're multiple, and the higher up on the totem pole, the quieter they are. The lowest guy is always the one that does the talking until we can get to that top guy.
What is the most you've seen?
Dozens.
In one person? How does it work? Is it one by one and the names keep coming?
It's not a science like that. Like, they have to follow that protocol. Generally speaking, if the person possessed or has obsession or oppression really wants them out, and they renounce whatever they did to let them in. So let's say they played with a Ouija board and somehow these things went into them, and they were looking for supernatural communication with whatever. So it wasn't an accident. Then they have to say, they're sorry for that sin of idolatry, of seeking false gods, and they renounce that sin, and if they're Catholic, they can be absolved. And then they say, in Jesus' name, now I want nothing to do with these demons. Well, now they have nothing to hook into, because her will is involved, and God honors the will a lot. And they may not go immediately, but eventually they have to go, and they know they do. And they generally leave from the lowest to the highest, and the little ones kind of just flutter away quickly until you're dealing with who's the pen here. And in the old rite of exorcism before Vatican II, the priest asked 2 questions of the demon. What is your name? Under penalty of Jesus Christ, tell me your name. And what is the date you've been assigned to leave this person? And they usually have to answer that, unless there's something else going on we're not aware of. Like the person who's the victim has opened other doors that they're not telling us that they're also hooked into. You know what I mean?
Like what kind of doors?
So maybe they're also doing witchcraft and we don't know that, but they're actively practicing it, and they're actively putting spells on people, and but they're not telling us that. Well, those demons know we don't have to go, because this person's still doing our thing. It's our thing. They're in our tent. Perfect example. Have you heard of satanic SRAs?
No.
So just like parents can take the authority to baptize a child by the parent's authority, the baby gets baptized, so too the devil mimics everything God does, and so too can evil happen, where a person or a grandfather can take a baby and put it to the devil, and then satanic ritual of the child, usually they have some kind of act on the child.
Oh, man.
And for that child to the devil for power, that they would gain some power in some way, or wealth, or whatever. And oftentimes the parent doesn't even know, although they figure it out pretty quickly, because the child immediately starts having problems and night terrors and thoughts, and all these horrible things come in. We had a case of a woman from Rome who was part of a religious order, well-known religious order. And they said, we don't know what happened to her, but suddenly she is possessed and we need to send her for help. So she winds up with our group in Omaha. We had her for over a year where she's getting daily prayer, daily deliverance, daily intercessory prayer, and praying over her. It took a year. And it was only when we found out, because part of the process is there's teams that lift her up every day and ask the Lord, should we be praying for here? What has to go? And it kept coming back to a father figure in her life. So we finally called her family and said, look, there's something we don't know here. Did something happen to her as a baby? And then the mother said there was a family member who did something to her, some kind of satanic ceremony, and did consecrate her to the devil.